Okay, let's jump straight into it. It's episode 276 of View from 202. And unfortunately, I've, after long secret discussions that have been undertaken by the executive of Energy Drink Soccer Incorporated and various small business owners, such as Gourmet Grill, Barclay Pizza and Pasta, and of course Woke Hirams. Our CEO has asked us to indefinitely pause the rest of View from 202. Now you may be saying, weren't we relying on View from 202 for trenchant insights into the Red Bulls season? Wasn't that underpinning all of the planned development of all sorts of sardonic Red Bulls content for years to come? Wasn't it already being listed on the Takes stock market? Yes, but we just decided it was too much for the brave soldiers of Gourmet Grill to burden. So for that reason, this episode will be the last before the indefinite pause.
I speak to the owner of the Gourmet Grill on a regular basis, and he said that View from 202 and all of the laughter and just revelry it was creating was clogging the streets, preventing people from getting out to Gourmet Grill, and we just had to kind of put things aside for a minute until we can find a better solution to all this.
I also heard that he complained that we're so bad at golf that after we finish at playing at Marine Park, we don't even have time to go get a burger and cannoli at Gourmet Grill, and that's just really destroying the economy of Marine Park. So, your actions have consequences, folks.
This is a negative thing. I thought this was like the YouTuber, like, oh, we're done. Like, we need to focus on our personal life type thing.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we're going to black out our profile picture. It's just going to be a black circle. Or our profile picture squares now. I don't know. I feel like it's gone back so many times. I guess if, like, you're the White House, you get picked to be a square. Or, like, the Mets get to have a square.
Oh, I didn't even think about how that worked.
Yeah.
Or cared.
Yeah, and they get the gold check marks so that they're not disgusting blue riffraff.
Right. So enjoy it while you can, folks. Until then, you have 3 games that we're going to recount in this episode of View from 202. It's the 4 of us, as usual. I like saying that even though it's been like years since we've had a guest. Sometimes it's 3 of us. But just, rest assured, there's not a 5th person who's going to appear unless we announce it. So the 3 games.
We should have a guest again.
Yeah, but that requires us to know people.
Yeah, that's true.
And to get along with people. And again, indefinitely pausing the show.
Right.
So 3 games: Charlotte, Orlando, and New England. 2 of these games were at home the same week. They were wins. The last game was a loss at New England.
Season over.
And what many are declaring certainly a game that happened. But
I'm glad that we waited to record so that we didn't have to get owned by thinking the shield is back on.
I should look at the table again. But on a abstract picture, especially after those 2 first wins against Charlotte and Orlando, things were trending the right direction there. The other teams dropped points. Miami dropped points.
They're still not that far off.
Yeah, still not that far off.
There's a game in hand, and it's 6 points.
And I would say, just going roughly chronologically, these first 2 games are certainly a case of the Red Bulls, dare I say, holding serve, albeit in a sort of odd fashion, as particularly this first game was interrupted by rain for about, an hour and a half. Peaches, you and Luna were on the scene.
We were.
At the very first Bark Night.
Yes.
It's not Bark at the Park. It's just
Bark
Night.
Yeah.
And they made sure to advertise on TV for Bark Night during Bark Night.
Yeah. The game on the field was Bark Night also, apparently. For the viewers at home, you needed to be kind of suspending your disbelief.
I'm a little disappointed that it wasn't like when Nickelodeon, broadcast the Super Bowl now, and there wasn't like a big dog that came out of the goal and
exactly.
ate the ball.
Right.
Go big or go home, in my
players,
opinion.
Well, I was going to say Nickelodeon does the slime. I guess with dogs it would be something grosser. But,
Yeah.
I thought it would be a more inclusive kind of bark too. No peppermint bark there, no tree bark.
Oh,
You know.
all right. Is there a third type of bark that you can think of?
I just thought of it too.
Very bold of you to list two things. All right. Well, how was... I saw you got photographed and put on the feed.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be as you put it, a good Hinge photo.
Yeah, is it on there yet?
No, I shouldn't. Yeah, Luna didn't really like it that much. I don't think so. I might not do it again. She, I was like, oh, look at the soccer going on, Luna. Like a good father would. But she wasn't really into that. She was just kind of looking back at all the other dogs in the section.
I don't think Luna speaks English.
She speaks Korean a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Were there any dog amenities at the stadium?
there were like relief areas. She was kind of afraid to go in them because, I noticed it mostly during the thunder delay when we were all the dogs were supposed to stay in the second floor concourse.
Oh, the
Secret
secret
concourse.
Yeah. So I got to spend quite a bit of time there.
That's uncanny.
Yeah, they had free pup cups at the glazed donut stand by the
Pup
section.
cups.
Yeah, so just whipped cream in the cup.
Oh, okay.
I only know what pup cups are because I saw some sovereign citizen video recently where a guy got arrested at McDonald's for demanding a pup cup that they would not give him, which is how I learned that that's like an established thing, I guess.
Everyone knows this. It's just a pup cup. I can go anywhere in
You
the
just get
country
a pup cup?
and
It's
order
like
a pup
I feel
cup.
like you mostly see like TikToks of people pulling up to like Starbucks or something. We don't do that now with their dog, and then they order a pup cup and then like the worker hands it and the dog
I
receives
see.
it.
This is a cross-chain phenomenon, though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can say that to any...
No, I mean like a lot of places have, like the local coffee shop here has one too. So it's like not even a chain type thing. It's like
with caffeine.
Well, no, it's just whipped cream. Just
Okay.
an establishment that would have that sort of thing might just give you a small cup with whipped cream in it.
I want to hear more about these relief areas
Yeah,
that you mentioned.
they
What
put down-
was the format there?
So they put down these like artificial turf pads, like in like a squared off area, and then one below the stairs. So if you wanted to go all the way down there, you could. Luna waited until the end, till we did our parade onto the field and did it on the artificial turf right next to the pitch. But
I'm sure
I'm sure they were planning for that
relief
type of
areas
area.
probably come from some contractor where that's his entire business is renting out these AstroTurf relief areas, and this guy donates $6,000 to the local GOP every election
Yeah,
cycle.
You better believe he demands pup cups at every business he goes to.
He has an everyday carry for demanding his pup cups.
These are
You
the
better
small
believe.
business owners that carry this country,
Yeah,
So,
Our beautiful voters.
Yeah, it took them a lot of reassurance to get him to even come near Newark. He posted 8 times to the RBNY subreddit being like, is it safe?
is there parking?
Yeah.
And he is the central model of the fan the New York Red Bulls want
Yeah.
going into
He
the
almost
21st
didn't-
century.
He almost didn't do it because his buddy's HVAC business couldn't get a gig in during this whole event either.
Well,
so.
they were upset because there wasn't what would the color for HVAC thin blue line be? There wasn't an HVAC,
For our first
Stainless
responders.
steel.
yeah. So, thank you for the labor that you put in, small business owners.
But I will say, I wish that Bark Night had been a little bit more thoughtful. The full volume and full lights are on the whole time, and I think that
Dogs don't like that.
Yeah, well,
There's a lot of humans who don't like that.
Well, I was gonna say, obviously Red Bull Arena is capable of having a less sensory night.
Isn't that supposed to be a semi-permanent feature of the stadium these days?
No, I think they have like a suite that's like
Oh.
a little muted, or you can like hang out for those
Sensory sensitivity.
sensitive to sensory experiences. But I think dogs are also sensitive to sensory
It
experiences
didn't turn
in a
down the
similar
volume.
way.
It's been very loud this year.
It was very loud. Like Luna was panting for the first 10 minutes just from like the PA volume mostly.
Vibrations.
And
almost
like,
get to
yeah,
you.
like it was just the drums from the South Ward. I think she would have been okay, but like she got into the game a little bit, like by the end, so it wasn't terrible, but yeah, a lot of dogs there.
How were the other dogs?
They're dogs.
All right.
Yeah. It's good dog. All good boys and girls, for sure.
13 out of 10. Heckin'
Yeah.
Pupperino.
Heckin' pups.
Wow. Well,
They were barking.
yeah. How did no one got into a fight?
Not really. The dogs were pretty close together. Like the seats were surprisingly, I think, compact in the
Is
section.
that how it works at other stadiums, like at baseball stadiums? Do all the dogs have to?
Yeah, I was thinking of the Mets one. It's all in one section.
That's sort of funny. I mean, I guess maybe it's more convenient in some ways, but you'd think maybe that
It
would
might be better to spread them
counterproductive.
out. Yeah, but
I mean, I guess like some people
Other
don't want to
people
be
don't wanna be
around
near
dogs.
them, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I wouldn't like that.
Yeah.
it's just a South American experience, you know.
I'm not going to ask you to unpack that. We're gonna.
There was a video
that came out
last
this
week.
week from like an Uruguayan like league or something. It's like
Where there
defenders falling over.
Yeah, there was a goal that was scored in in like the South American leagues where like the ultras run along the fence with the player. There's a dog running
just
along
came
the
along
fence with the
randomly.
ultras.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah,
You're off the hook.
yeah. Don't worry, it's topical, not
And
racist.
how was the post match tour of the field? How many people stayed for that? How many dogs stayed?
Yeah,
for
wasn't
that?
that like at 1 in the morning by that point?
A surprising amount. Well, I mean, like I feel like a surprising amount of people just braved it out because it would be more of a nightmare to walk through a thunderstorm with your dog than to
That's
just like
true.
take shelter.
You're pot committed at that point.
Yeah, so a lot of people walked around and they just kind of like hurried you along. It's like, hey, yeah, just keep going, don't stop, don't let them onto the grass, because I didn't realize this, but like there's grass and then there's like a ring of artificial turf around it.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that was just like turf.
I feel like they expanded it a few years ago.
Maybe, yeah.
The
It looks like
artificial
it's a little
turf.
bit more than it was when I had played there. And then like the concrete area. So we just walked on the artificial turf on the side.
I was surprised that how casual you were about saying that Luna peed on the field. I would think that they would be a little uptight about that, but it was just on the artificial.
Yeah. She didn't pee on the grass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Peach's shot. Marge shot reference for the old heads.
oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did she have a dog?
She insisted that her dog be allowed to shit all over Riverfront Park's diamond.
I see. And I can only imagine what the dog's name was. I'm sure it was.
Shotzi.
Oh. Could be worse.
Yeah.
Than what I was fearing. The game itself, does
Probably
anyone
named
remember
after some
it?
Nazi general.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Was it? It was 3-1.
Yeah.
Nothing in the first half.
No.
Pretty
Not a
ho-hum.
boring first half.
Not a boring first half.
Well, like
I watched it on TV and don't remember much about it. But
right, but it wasn't like I don't know. It wasn't like chances weren't happening in the first half.
My main memory of the
game.
first half is that I actually thought the Charlotte kits were quite nice.
Yeah, the kind of lighter blue ones that
And
have
then,
kind
like,
of the
the
gradient.
gradient, yeah.
I like them too.
I would say this was a more or less
Cornell
first
had a good
team-
first half, and I think that
Yeah.
like we could talk about this later. Also, might be the reason why he reacted so strongly at the end of the game.
Well, so Charlotte does not score very much. They had scored like 1 goal a game for the last like 6 games on average. you
Yeah,
know?
very conservative
Yeah.
team.
But like particularly, this is their best season yet, right? Like they're actually like halfway decent.
Yeah, they're doing okay.
Yeah, I guess
but
they're
just,
in 5th place.
But playing pretty
Just grinding out. Yeah.
under Smith. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was a fairly first team for the Red Bulls. Really the only sort of substitution you could say we had was Wiki Carmona. But even then, I don't know. Wiki's sort of first team player at this point. I guess you could argue whether he or Harper are really commanding that right midfield position. But other than that, we do have Frankie Amaya and Daniel Edelman in the middle, and Forsberg fit and playing again. And Morgan, of course, starts up top. So this is kind of getting the whole gang together on the Wednesday night. Forsberg did pierce through the deadlock with quite the free kick, showing a bit of quality here, and then scores on a cutback from Morgan, which I have to say, a bit of lazy play by Charlotte here, but we capitalize as good teams do, and a nice little goal to add to the tap-in meter.
Well, I guess at this point it's worth bringing up the actual rain delay that happened, which I don't know. It kind of hit me just how the game ended up turning out after that. A little bit of a parallel with not a full parallel, but a little bit with the Miami game. Where Miami got spanked up here, where they did that little trick where they tried to like stay in the locker room late and like kind of delay the game after that. And I don't know, maybe there is something to it that like you have to like, keep your timing on point, and you just have to keep yourself like in the rhythm and in the mindset to be able to, win at RBA, because if you turn your brain off against, the Red Bulls crashing at you with the press for 90 minutes, it's real easy to slip up and get caught. And I don't know, maybe that's what happened to Charlotte, like what seemed to kind of happen to Miami a couple months ago. I don't know. That's the most of a take I could conjure up, because as Brit kind of said otherwise, it seemed just kind of like, kind of lazy, not fully committed play from Charlotte. And I think maybe that, if you want to take the delay factor out of it completely and just say that Charlotte was unmotivated and demoralized in the game, maybe that's a start of a return to, dare I say, the fortress days at RBA, when we've kind of discussed on the show over the years where, other teams coming into RBA, even in seasons where the Red Bulls weren't necessarily like good or dominant, teams still found it to be kind of like a chore to come play here.
I think 2017 is a good example of that.
Yeah, and teams were a little bit intimidated and, felt a little overwhelmed to come play here. And maybe a little bit of that is coming back into the picture. Maybe it's a little bit more of annoyance than intimidation these days, but nonetheless.
I mean, I think that's the glass half full. Well, that's qualifying it too much. That's the optimistic upshot, I think, from these two games. Is, earlier I described it as holding serve, but maybe that's too dismissive, but I think, it's genuinely a point of growth compared to the Struber era, that we are sort of casually or unspectacularly winning games like these two against Charlotte and Orlando, when in years past that was not guaranteed. And I think
teams
it's
looked a lot
that.
more confident playing here.
Yeah. And was it Orlando or was it Vancouver? There was one team that really...
it was Orlando and Vancouver in succession that really brought in the bad part of the Armas era.
Yeah, that, and I think maybe also Colorado. I mean, I think there was an Orlando, maybe it was Orlando win, where like early in the season, like Orlando beat us at home, and they celebrated like it was a big fucking deal.
Yeah,
it kind of was.
That was 2019 when the wheels started to come off under Armas.
And by the end of the season, teams were not even celebrating that much at the end. When they won at RBA, it was the intimidation factor was gone. So, credit to Schwarz again for, I think, rebuilding that. And, it's been a couple weeks since we've recorded, so it's worth also remembering or hammering home that this is the first game after the tough loss against NYCFC. So I think this was low-key a very important win to notch. If they had dropped this game, even if it was like a sloppy, sort of unfair, unlucky game after the rain break, I think that really starts defining our run of form in a different way. So I think the team did look like it was prepared well and focused to come out after the break. So that's a unspectacular but good thing. And it is nice to see Forsberg pull out a bit of quality to get us off of the starting mat there with his free kick. Something I've been asking for more a little bit, or more so just commenting that doesn't really seem to be a skill set. But it's nice to have that difference there, even though, as we know, set pieces are fake and illegitimate. Or to quote Commandante Che Guevara, yes, it results in a basket, but at what cost to the collective spirit?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I agree with the kind of the rain delay thing. I think a lot of players, or either Sean Nealis, Forsberg, or Schwartz, or a combination of them, had talked about just, I think, staying into it throughout that.
I think I think in any context, the road team is at a disadvantage when there's like a rain delay like that, because it's really just heightening your idea of like, oh fuck, we have to be here for another few hours, and then we're gonna have to play.
Go back to the hotel, maybe like hit the plane ride.
Our plane's gonna be with less sleep tomorrow, and just I feel like when a road team's coming out in a situation like that, they're just kind of like, let's just get the fuck out of here.
Which is like also at that point
for us to pounce on it was not nothing, but
no, I mean, on top of that, I think not only to pounce on it, but to keep hammering and be able to keep bringing goals in, I think it's a big deal. But to like to the end of the match, it's also a big deal that we couldn't keep a clean sheet, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which is disappointing, and I do empathize with Cornell being so upset about that, because it does seem like the team just turned off.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's a positive sign though too. I mean, as far as just
mentality shifts,
they're being standards, and there being some kind of standards to uphold, and just I've been talking about the last few weeks as the form dipped a little bit, that I was worried that the team was going to maybe turn off a little bit motivation wise once there was no longer the Shield or kind of a juggernaut season to try and preserve and maintain. But if they're getting upset about losing a clean sheet late in the game and of a game they otherwise routed, I mean I like that. I like that more than some of the other stuff this year where guys are throwing bottles around because somebody got a red card. That's different. But when you're getting upset just because guys were napping for a little bit at the end of a big win, I think that shows strong team mentality. So we'll see.
Yeah. So then on Saturday we played Orlando, a bit of a different game, at least on the final score. But this is another game where the difference was a set piece goal, which again, at what cost? But 1-0 this time, courtesy of man of the hour, John Michael Tolkin, with his cultured left foot. Slotting in
trad cultured left foot. No.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is. Like, he doesn't have to account for the slight curvature of the earth when he takes a free kick.
Right.
That's a good point. Yeah, he does have that advantage.
It's unlike all the snipers out there that are like counting the wind and the
because wind doesn't exist either.
Yeah. Did John Tolkin play any games against Toronto FC or Montreal or Vancouver in the last couple of years? I don't know. I guess, did they play at home at all? Was he able to cross the border in 2020? I don't know.
But I think wasn't Toronto having to play in like Orlando for a while or something?
I mean, the Blue Jays played in
Buffalo,
Buffalo and Dunedin for like 2 years.
But to be serious, I don't remember. That was back when I was in the deepest depths of beat reporting on the club, and I don't remember there being really anybody who stood out as somebody who didn't do the vax those years. I guess I'll just spill it now that apparently one of the reasons that Tyler Pasche didn't work out a few years ago is because it turned out he had issues in that department.
That was a name that this older Red Bulls fan genuinely did not remember. Tyler Pasche.
Yeah.
Quebecois legend.
The reason Tolkien wouldn't be allowed in Canada is not because of that, but actually because he's also Quebecois nationalist.
John Tolkien.
Yeah.
John Tolkien.
Yeah. It was originally spelled. He's a descendant of de Tocqueville, and it's anglicization. No.
Yeah, actually in Quebec they really insist, because of the dual language laws in Quebec, he has to be called Jamai and Le Jamai. Well, he's the difference in this game for us, I suppose.
Yeah.
Nice tidy little free kick into the inside netting of the goal. It must be said that Gillespie, I think, was screened or did not see it, and he seemed to indicate that afterwards. Proper flailing action from Gillespie right there. But, you make your own luck. You force other teams into making mistakes. Gillespie does not make that mistake unless you hit the ball well enough to cause it to happen, and that's what he did.
Good goal,
yeah.
savable was my immediate take on it.
Yeah. What else about this game? We were there. We just watched the highlights again.
It kind of I thought the end of the game, I wasn't necessarily that sure we could hold on. I felt like
Orlando was mostly crap.
but they were really bad also.
Especially when they had McGuire on the field in the first half, and he was a non-entity up top. And then they looked a little sharper with Muriel on there. He could, do a little bit more when the ball got down there, but for the most part, they were not really sending numbers forward. They were not really threatening, and it was kind of a slog of a game. Bad Orlando's like real tough to watch. Even when they're playing well the last few years, they're a pretty cagey team, but when they're bad, they're pretty bad.
I have to be honest with myself and the listeners that this was a lesson to me that Nico Lodeiro is playing with Orlando now. And I bet he left Seattle longer ago than I realized. No, he was with Seattle till last year.
Yeah.
I think I may be getting confused with Ozzy Alonso, who left Seattle quite a while ago.
Well, when I was getting
several
Lodeiro,
years.
when I saw Lodeiro on the field for them, I kept thinking he was Pereira, their previous number 8, who whipped us up in that Open Cup game a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But he's moved on from them, so.
I would say this is another game where the team showed some mental maturity. I think in previous seasons, this would have been a game where it would have been very typical for the team to have a mental slip and make a mistake and, ultimately drop 2 points here. Thankfully, we did not. I will say this is a game where I did feel a little frustrated with Wiki Carmona. I have to say, not prohibitively so, or I don't think it's the end of the world or the end of his career, but it did feel like he wasn't quite getting the job done on the day. And it was concerning that even with a more full squad, this is before any of our international departures, we didn't really have a backup midfielder on our bench. I mean, we had Yengar, and it appears people are pronouncing that on TV Yengur. Yengur. And he did end up coming in. He's, of course, a wide player. And then we had Jeremy Hall and Bento Estrella, who are, literally 17. So, it's great that they get minutes when we're winning, but, not really first-team options or, mature first-team players. So that's just another opportunity to hammer on what we've been saying basically all season is that, especially with Stroud's injury, we're pretty thin there if we wanted some support in a little bit more central play.
And as far as just the end of the world, end of his career, he has some flashes here and there, but I just looked it up to confirm, and Carmona's 21 now. If he's not good now, I don't think he's ever really going to pop. Certainly for a team that's trying to get to the level that this team is right now. So I don't know. It's been 3 or 4 years now.
I think it's especially troubling when we don't really know what his strength is. If I think it's not quite one other possibility is looking at Omir Fernandez, whereas he didn't end up developing quite as rapidly or as much as we hoped. I think playing under Chris Harmis in a very influential part of his career didn't help. He didn't get that many minutes, but he ended up being a useful player at a comprehensible position. Wiki has been tasked with so many different sort of positions.
I still really have no idea what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I have no idea what kind of player he is. He's just such a strange player. He's got that strange, stocky build, but he plays more of he doesn't the way it's not unusual for attackers and finesse attackers to be kind of stocky and blocky like him, but he's not very
He's not
fluid
good on
in movement.
Shaqiri.
And like, even though you clearly see him trying to do the dribbling stuff, and he does have some nice touch and some nice technique, but it's just like, I don't get how he's supposed to be using it in any part of the field. I don't see any position except maybe fullback, but he's not really even quick enough to be there. I just don't see him as a player with a position. I see him as a, guy with some nice touch and stuff like that, who just doesn't have, the athleticism really to play, or not, I shouldn't say any athleticism, but just the type of soccer athleticism that you would need to be just about anywhere on the field.
Yeah, it feels like he would do better as a second baseman. Like,
Right?
he has nice,
Yeah.
like, fast twitch, punchy power.
Kinda, yeah, that's
but like
interesting.
as a midfielder, it's not really his strength, I don't think.
I think earlier in the season I saw a little bit more of maybe like flashes of where he could have been if he had more, I think, direction until now.
I think at some point you have to commit him to a position somewhere, but it's just so unclear where.
Yeah,
that is.
and like I think like to me the brief flashes of strength that I saw were like, oh, he is able to position himself sometimes pretty well in that kind of like linking attacking midfield, but he also can't play a through ball. So like those things don't match up, with kind of like, or like a finish a 1-2, or kind of even like dribble pass if he gets.
I'm
the
almost
ball on
wondering
that
if he
side.
should
It's
be.
like,
I'm almost wondering if he should be tried as like a back to goal striker.
Right.
something.
yeah, maybe.
I mean, it looks like he and the team around him are undecided or unclear as to whether he should be, when they give him the ball, is he at the end of a sequence or is he facilitating a sequence? No one seems to be sure.
Right.
Honestly, I feel like he'd be maybe, like you're saying, better in kind of what Manuel almost does that sometimes now, where it's like, oh yeah, you just like, for me, I think he's a liability a little further back on the pitch. We've seen him misplace a lot of balls into the mid, like
Yeah, when he was playing
the midfield,
when
that's just
Frankie
like-
should have been playing, it was rough.
But,
Yeah.
but he also just has no burst of pace after like 10, 20 yards.
right. So like, yeah, maybe like backing up that Lewis Morgan, Manuel kind of like area is really where
Yeah, I
he's
don't-
destined to be on this team. But
I mean, when he first showed up, fucking 3-4 years ago, I was and he got all those minutes during that first Struber era. Even then, I was very confused about what kind of player he is or was supposed to be. And if anything, I'm even less clear years
yeah,
later.
and I will like it if you're getting the ball and like you have a reputation for kind of ripping it. I haven't seen him rip a lot of shots either.
Well, I feel like he tried on Saturday.
Oh, really? I feel like I've seen Amaya do a little bit more than him recently in kind of like that effort from beyond the
Maybe.
box. But
Yeah. Well, at least, we still pull through, get the win, held serve, did not make a mistake to an unremarkable team. I will say for this game, I've been ragging on the team and the club, rather, for like its match day presentation and like the presentation of the club in general, and I still will. But I will point out one thing that I liked at the stadium, which is I was early enough this time to see that they had a segment where the host was asking some fan some trivia question about like which Red Bulls player, did such and such. And I was like, oh, you know what? That is an example of something that is really missing from the rest of the match day presentation, where it's like, yeah, this is a team with history and like stats and fun facts and players. And none of that is present during the game itself. And it made me realize that from like about 15 minutes till the rest of the game, it's like the Red Bulls have like come down in a spaceship out of nowhere to facilitate the game day experience. Like, I'm not going to go into the rant again about the soccer being secondary. And I was like, why don't they could do a lot more stuff like that. Just like emphasizing like getting to know the players, like all the baseball teams, like, who was it that has like the Pokemon game where it shows the outline of a player and just like, it's kid friendly, lighthearted stuff, but it's still based on like the team and the players and like,
you could even be creative and tie it to the theme of whatever night you're doing. Maybe
Let's
Right.
not get carried away.
you could do the world's worst pun blind resume for the Red Bulls. You could blind Red Bull Mume or something and do that sort of game, incorporate a little bit of that, and like it also stuck out to me this
Act like it's
last
cool
week.
to know something about the team, and
Right.
act like it's cool to like be aware that the team's been around for a while.
Yeah,
That's how I feel at Mets games. It's just like, damn, that's a A lot of player names.
Yeah, I feel like I'm constantly getting checked. And also, some of the Mets questions are like really hard. Like the one the last game we went to was really hard.
It respects the fans' intelligence. Like, you know.
But yeah, we could do more of that. And, you know, you could even just have a couple questions where the answer is Carlos Rivas. Throw a bone to the crowd.
Honestly, sometimes even like on this day in histories of this team, throw some old clips of old history. You know, I feel like baseball games do that a lot.
Yeah, you could be like, on this day in history, Bradley Wright Phillips scored that sick goal in the 2014 MLS All-Star game.
Yeah, Mike Grillo scored the fastest MLS goal in league history, or like something like that. You know?
But no, we have to get a notification that, guys, Section 217 sold out today.
Oh, God.
All the $7 tickets are gone. We've hit our KPIs.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I'll take the torch from you, Brett, as far as ripping some of the promotional elements of the club, because that really kind of bugged me this afternoon as we're recording. That the club's using its app for the fans to brag about its ticket reps, like little campaign this morning going well. And there's so many different things, like saying stuff like core memories and just like all this kind of stuff where it's just like all the subtext is text. It's like people think it's like, I don't know, that we're there to watch the business do well. I don't know if it's just this, the weird circle jerk of all the hand wringing with, fan base and like seeing red and shit and all through the years about this, like, oh, we have to, bind together and support the team and spread the word and get the attendance up and all that kind of stuff. Maybe that's an element of it that's just got them thinking that, oh yeah, people want to know about the commercial side of things too, and people want to hear about how well we're selling tickets and stuff like that. But it's just like, I don't want to hear about that on the app. That's not the kind of notification I want to get on the app. On the app that like needs like 6 different attempts to get your ticket to work
I think
on game day.
It's more, I think, just kind of like business school, kind of like McKinsey consulting, like, oh, like these are the best practices. Make sure that all of your language includes a call to action to make sure that whatever you're doing, use your app, like make sure everyone downloads your app to get them more into the ecosystem.
To speak to that, and like also the branding and the game day stuff that Brit was just talking about, it just feels like
by numbers.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like people are operating off of reading a textbook, rather than actually having a sense of the team and the fans and what works or doesn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think like to your point of like what Struber felt like he was running some kind of science project, it almost feels like this team is running some kind of MBA project, It's just like, oh, this is your first year at an MBA program. You're learning how to do marketing. Like, make sure you use language that's effective. Make sure that you're optimizing and using effective tools to be efficient and every
it's written by
part of your conversion funnel. And
it's written by a space alien who's like never watched soccer or the Red Bulls before.
Well, it's like everything. I don't like I think the concerns about like people having concerns about, oh yeah, AI taking over are a little unfounded because we generally have as a species just gone that way anyway. Like I think everything just sounds like it comes out of a machine because we need to create something like at all times that's super effective at doing both sales and branding and like making sure that you're doing these things and celebrating your own company and like
we've cracked our jokes about the JD Power Awards and all that stuff over the years, but the last like year or two has just really gone into overdrive where it just feels like they think, the marketing material is part of the show. Like,
and you might be thinking I'm kvetching about like the new age business stuff, and you might be right because this is all because Dietrich Mateschitz died, and you took his old business like.
Oh wow, we didn't know what we were missing until it was gone. This is funny because I was thinking about complaining or saying that I looked up at the wall of the arena during the last match and I saw, the 99 retired number in the corner and the Legends row on the other side. That's, Luis Robles is the only Legends row guy at this point. And I was just like, now that it's been like 5 years since this happened, like this is so incoherent. Like like how like these things happen like within like a year of each other and like we couldn't pick the way. But in comparison to AI, maybe only a human can make something that strange. So maybe that's sort of charming to have that. But like also, if you're gonna commit to Legends Row I don't particularly like the phrasing, but whatever. Like, it's time to just like throw someone else in there.
You should induct people like pretty regularly.
Like,
for that
once
kind of
Dax
thing.
It should be a pretty
retires,
easy set
yeah.
piece to just get people excited for games too.
Yeah.
Way more than fucking Bark Night or whatever. But I mean, I guess that's the thing where it's just like, I mean, we've talked about it where it's just like, it feels like, and this is kind of an MLS broadly thing too, where it feels like kind of diehards and established fans are being told to kind of eat shit because we're going, you know, we're hawking our wares to, you know, Disney families and stuff now.
Right.
Who don't care about soccer and don't care about the history.
I would say
of
that is
anything.
the biggest difference between the older, because, you know, MLS 1.0, like good for the league whole shtick for MLS 1.0 to 2.0, there was a bit of like a correct collective neuroses of like, oh, how well is the league doing to market itself? But it was also accompanied with like the really fastidious, like, oh, we're collecting all the stats. Like, you know, Metro Fanatic, genuinely a very deep well of statistics and like fan history of the club, and like does like, you know, has its like legend of the whatever, everything. The club is trying to do the like business, like marketing neurosis without any of that aspect of it. And it's like, oh, what's going on? It's all very strange.
Yeah, and like I feel like we did do kind of the stuff for like history during that era, and even before that a little bit. Like we had like Juan Pablo Angel and like former.
They should put
Red
Thierry
Bulls
Henry in
come
the
out.
It was
Legends
like
row.
2017, 18, right?
Like 20
and-
and 20.
I mean, just
Yeah.
to maybe tie it all together so we can move back to the games. But I mean, just like, just to bring it all to like a common thread. I mean, between like, yeah, the weird, yeah, commemoration of history around the stadium. I mean, the weird, you know, marketing, you know, kind of sloganing and stuff like that, and the tone of that,
Red
and the
runs
stuff,
deep.
and the stuff like, you know, the weird jerseys and the jerseys changing colors all the time, and having these like tone deaf theme jerseys and stuff like that. It just doesn't feel like there's anybody who's just like kind of an ombudsman for, you know, what is the club identity or not. It feels like
Right.
it's all over the place, and everybody's just coming up with random shit in meetings every month that's like only half followed through on. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, then like, you know, this Legends Row thing. And it's just kind of like, I don't know. It would be nice if there was, you know, if Mark DeGrandpré or whoever would hire a single person who is, you know, kind of like a trusted, knowledgeable soccer person who would understand how to maintain a lot of those kind of cultural threads.
Right.
It would do a lot for a lot of kind of small, maybe less visible areas of how to market the club, but it would, you know, be significant. I mean, we kind of talked about how it seemed like maybe Thelwell might be that kind of person when he first came in, and that he might be somebody who has some taste and some ideas of the sort of cultural standards that you have to raise to be a successful soccer operation. Schneider, you know, who obviously has a little bit of a similar profile to Thelwell, and, you know, from everything I've heard is conscious of the marketing and media side of things, and has, you know, filled some of those roles in his past in Europe. I don't get the sense that he really cares about anything like that, you know, especially when you see, you know, the one time a year that he comes out in a press conference, he's just kind of sitting there giggling and laughing about, you know, just the sheer, you know, idea of him having to explain what's going on with the Red Bulls. So
Yeah, I get the sense that he thinks, oh, we're in Elvis country. Just do that Elvis country
yeah,
stuff.
just do
Like,
whatever tacky shit you want. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I do want to tie a bow on this, but I'll end with two things. One is that my pet theory is that for why some of this has gotten so much worse, not only with the Red Bulls, but sports and maybe just marketing in general, is that with that divide of like text and subtext, like I think there's less of a strong sense of like what you say as a strategy internally and what you say outward facing. And I suspect that's because everyone is just talking through a screen to everyone now. There's no more like literal like we are in the office deliberating on what we're gonna go into that room and say this, or we're gonna buy a billboard that says this. Everyone is just typing into a screen for everything. Your interface with the world is just screen, and it all blends together for like who the audience is and who your coworkers are. And, you know, you're talking about your strategy online, on Twitter and on LinkedIn, publicly too, and trying to like sell yourself there. And it's all just commingled. And that's why I think we're all subjected to it. And Then two, I do have to just sort of throw up my hands and laugh, tying it back to our goal scorers this week, that they've been pushing this sort of like generic, dropped out of a spaceship, like Pollyannish, like gee golly, family friendly shtick with maybe the worst possible selection of players you could do. Like, you know, the Red Bulls in recent history have had not very many controversies, but good Lord, this team cannot stop putting Dante Van Zer, Emil Forsberg, and John Tolkin's face on things. When, one, we've discussed, you really don't need to do it with Van Zer. He's not playing that well. It would be not conspicuous to not feature him, a player that had a massive racism scandal. Two, Emil Forsberg, you know, okay, he's like your big signing. I sort of get it. But, you know, the revelation, and there was another accusation that came out this week where his wife has now said that he left her when she was pregnant and started sleeping with another woman. So just like very funny to be pushing the family values shtick while you're trying to make this guy the face of your team. And now, you know, John Tolkien, we were joking about it earlier indirectly, but you know, got a little mouthy on Twitter, and regardless of the merits of that actual interaction, this led to people digging through his likes on Twitter, and it's a real collection of like Andrew Tate, Flat Earth, Alex Jones, like real like off the deep end stuff, and that's like your Zoomer new face of the thing, and I feel less bad for rolling my eyes at his J-My nickname because he sounds like a 9-year-old the whole time, you know, now that this is his shtick as well. So it's funny, I don't know, that they're going with this tone and this is actually the material they're working with. You know, maybe it would be smarter to, you know, feature Lewis Morgan, the best player on the team.
who apparently came out the other day. We were trying to trade this offseason.
Yeah.
Thank God Jochen Schneider failed. Thank God the only reason that we're actually doing well this season is because Jochen Schneider failed at getting his planned offseason.
Not even selling him, just trading him. And now he's been called up by Scotland for the Euros.
Which is, I will say, it's like, it's cool to have a player playing the Euros on your team. And also, I think, highlights how kind of like bad it is that Forsberg is going away for meaningless friendlies when we have guys who are like
friendlies that he apparently isn't even playing in.
Right, that like our players are warming up for legitimately like prestigious tournaments internationally, like the Copa America or the Euros. But like to what you're saying, Brit, like even beyond the types of actual characters on the team itself, God knows, you know, I watch Chelsea week in, week out. But like beyond that itself, it seems like that tone of like the Pollyannish kind of like, oh, help me, kind of like, oh,
you guys,
we
friends?
can do no wrong. Yeah, like big eye emoji thing. That seems incongruent with the tone that Schwartz wants to take with the team.
Yeah.
You know, like if you listen to the quotes after the match against New England, he was so disappointed with the sporting level of the players, and he's like very serious. He's very much presented himself as someone who's very respectful to the sport, very, very seriously concerned about results. And like, I think like, you know, we should just take a page off of his book. If anything, like I think the way that he's
and when he said a couple months ago when, you know, everybody was, you know, cranking it about how we were in second place or whatever, you know, Schwartz said, I mean, that doesn't really mean anything right now. Let's, you know, try and finish the rest of the season. And it's kind of like, yes.
Which like all of this, and we talked about this before too, is like, I think there's a lot of credit to be given to Sandro Schwartz for dealing with this whole, like, there is like a big mess going on behind the scenes. And he is like held together a very, I think, respectable team in this league. He's put himself forward with a very good tone on how to be a winner. And he's brought the team together as a mentality. I think like the players are speaking smarter in their own interviews because we have a better mentality as a team as well.
And like him, you know, criticizing, I think the specifics that he used after the New England game the other night were that he was focusing on the forwards in particular, and that the runs weren't deep enough and stuff like that. And that's a more specific criticism than Struber ever gave.
That you could work
and
on.
B, that it's he's only doing it once in a while because he's only losing once in a while, which was more of an issue under Struber. But B, when there's a loss once in a while, less frequently, and when he's giving specifics, you can go ahead and kind of dump on the players then, as opposed to when Struber was this tone of what Struber was saying, which was just like, what do you want me to do? Like, these
guys aren't trying hard
what,
enough.
what you think I'm the manager of the team or something? What do you expect me to do? For months and months on end. So,
but even without the
Schwartz
Struber,
has earned it.
Yeah,
like,
even
this
without
kind
the
of stuff.
Struber comparison, Schwartz, I think is just done a great job for himself. Like the media, I don't think is picking up on that. Maybe thank God to some extent.
What media?
Right, exactly. There's only state media, and they can't pick up on the fact that this team is doing really well because of this coaching change. It's totally changed the culture of this club, I really respect. I want to give this man his flowers because I think we can't even do enough job talking about him because of all the other stuff going around on this team. He's really put together this great team, and I can't give him his credit.
I cracked a joke just now, but I genuinely feel like people barely know this guy. I mean, I feel like I barely know him because there's so little media around the team right now, and there's so little kind of.
I mean, we are our team media, so I'm going to champion him.
Because it does sound like he is, kind of striking the right tone on a lot of this stuff, and obviously the results are kind of showing in it too. I mean, obviously losing to a team like New England is a blip, but there's also so many, as maybe we can get into now, although maybe we're running a bit long, but, there are certainly a lot of variables in this New England game.
Yeah, we can
you
be
never,
quick with this
You
one.
never want to lose to, one of the last place teams in the league, but when you're on the road and missing literally half your squad with all
your
these
starters, basically.
internationals and stuff like that. I don't know. I'll let a 1-0 loss where the team looked kind of funky slide.
Which, I will say, I thought the first half of the team was very much a 2023 squad if you think about it, and I thought that even then it's we were generating chances. We just weren't our forwards Schwartz I think was
The
saying
first half of the game against New England.
Yeah, first part of the game until essentially I think.
Well, talk about a game for Dante Vanzer to take a hold of things and prove his worth, and it might have been one of his worst performances.
Yeah, we've given some qualified praise for him at times this year. We haven't just dumped on him, where there have been times where he's demonstrated value as a quality supporting piece to play off of Morgan and Forsberg, and has had a nifty little bit of play and combined well. This was a game where he was sort of the only guy, and also speaking to another point of pain that we've been talking about recently with Apple and the production of the league, this is the first game I remember watching on Apple where the commentators admitted that what we were watching was not very good, and that Dante Vanzer was not very good, in particular.
Well, it was interesting. It was Cangelosi and Twellman on the call, right? Kind of like a hybrid call, and two of their biggest national guys and two guys with local ties. And you know what? It was pretty refreshing broadcast compared to what we've gotten used to with Apple.
Yeah, so that felt novel unto itself, but I think the one chance that really sticks out on Saturday against New England was that ball that lays up perfectly for Vanzer, and he would have had a little bit of work to do to get off a shot either straight off the volley or after taking a touch, but he just had the heaviest touch off the volley. It went 5 yards away from him, and it just kind of destroyed it. And I think
Cameron Harper's been playing very well the last few weeks.
Yeah.
There's no real specific point, but I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah. But more broadly speaking, I think this was, in some perverse way, this game was refreshing to, remind myself that there are still just some ugly games out there, and some all of our biggest players were gone. Forsberg, Morgan, Tolkin, Coronel, Isla, all gone. Playing on turf in New England. We had played 2 games the week before. Kind of just adds up to like a lousy.
Not a very inspirational night.
Yeah.
And I guess just to backtrack on what I said a second ago, I kind of do have a specific point about Harper being good the last few weeks, and it is to kind of say, and I thought about saying it a minute ago when he came up, but Yengor, it's been long enough now that I think I'm officially not seeing it.
Yep.
You know,
I think he seems like a decent, like, kind of north-south winger who can maybe be turned into a serviceable fullback, but not worth, like $1 million transfer and all the resources that it takes to sign a foreign player in this league. You could have gotten a guy like him out of freaking draft, out of like Virginia Tech or something.
yeah, you could probably find that guy somewhere else, even like in USL Championship.
Right.
But I kind of agree with you. I think instead of, well, Harper's done a very serviceable and maybe like good job at fullback at times too, which is maybe the thing. But maybe we should just switch him and Yengor if they have to play together and be like make Harper the attacking force and like let Yengor get some of those fullback minutes, because I could see it. Or if we decide to play 3 in the back, I think he'd be a wing back. I think like that might be his ideal role.
Well, whatever we end up doing with him, I think it's salvaging him from clearly not being much of a technical
winger,
presence
yeah.
and a final third presence, and yeah.
On the other side, though, I think you brought something up that I agree with, which is that we do still have like a big amount of depth, I guess, because I did like how Sofo looked.
Yeah, that was interesting. God, I mean, Lord knows I hate the idea of hyping up every fucking random flyer who comes up from Red Bulls too. People act like every one of them is, next Freddie Adu, but fucking what's his name? Sofo. Sofo. That's a funny name. Turd Ferguson. But yeah, just like this guy, he's like not even on a first team deal. He's not really getting hyped up as some sort of big option. You hear more about this Kasule guy from Uganda and some of the other recent forwards with RB2, but this Sofo guy comes in, has confidence, initiative on the ball. He's dribbling it around. He's playing 1-2s. I'm sure it disgusted all the Red Bull brass to see a young player playing so freely and so confidently. Hopefully they give him a couple more years in Montclair to work that out of his system. But yeah, he had a pretty nice little flashy performance. I'd be interested to see more of him.
I thought Julian Hall looks a little older, but still unprepared for this league, maybe. But we'll see.
I don't have a take about him.
Yeah.
Well, Saturday at home against Nashville is our next chance to see the team. I guess Morgan will still be at the Euros.
Yeah.
Will Forsberg be back? Well, who's going to be back?
I think so. I think Forsberg's done with his little chintzy games with Sweden, and I think Coronel is more or less gone for the summer with Copa America and all that. And
the Olympic guy. So
I think the Ayla and Tolkin and some of those guys will be back, but I think Morgan and Coronel are gone.
Good
long
time
term.
for Tolkien to be back.
Olympics. Wow.
Yeah. In Paris.
Well, the game against Saturday against Nashville, I'll categorize it or characterize it similar as our 2 previous home games, which is it gets an opportunity to hold serve. The Nashville is not great this year. Their morale probably not high. They're 9th place right now. We are 10 points ahead of them in the table. Granted, they have a game in hand. But this is a game where I think we can expect and want ourselves to assert ourselves and try to get a win here at home, all 3 points, even with some players missing. And I think Morgan is really going to be the biggest absence. So it'll be interesting to see how Schwartz drills the team in anticipation of that. Do you anticipate it to be a Manuel Vanzer pairing, or it doesn't feel likely that Burke is going to play or start? Surely.
I think Schwartz came out and said that Burke isn't 90 minutes fit.
Okay. Well, there you go. Looks like Avon's
Is he
there.
60 minutes
Manuel.
fit?
I think that was the
Yeah,
implication also.
Well, we'll see. Regardless, though, I think I'm still expecting 3 points here.
Yeah, you would hope so. If the team's going to keep shield based, they almost have to against a team that's pretty thoroughly mid-table, team that just fired its manager and is working with an interim right now. This is a game that a team that's going to be contending all the way through should be winning. So,
Is this one of those these guys know us type of matchup though?
what with all the
All the
old
ex-Red
boys?
Bull guys.
Is that even true still?
I don't think is
Drew is
Ewart
there.
even playing though. I don't think he's getting that many
Probably not.
minutes.
I think he's been a pretty consistent starter for them. I think Wheel is kind of more in and out. Dax is gone, but I think Davis is still playing for them.
Yeah, he
pretty
is.
regularly.
Sean Davis.
Oh, I forgot Dax went to Atlanta. That's weird.
Yeah, that one hurt a little bit. That's my first candidate for who else to throw on Legends row once he retires.
Well, I was saying Juan Pablo no. I think would be a good shout too.
Yeah, but all right. Well, all right, everyone, together. Red runs deep.
We didn't even mention the fact that the guys look like they all died in some plane crash in that opening video that they do
Oh yeah,
when it goes black and white.
when it's like grainy and black
Yeah.
and white. Yeah, the one they play at halftime kind of works better.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, but
Other thing about Nashville is that they are much weaker now that Reese Witherspoon and Jim Toth has split up.
yeah, the tough power's gone.
Yeah, they've lost that mojo. So.
Jim, you screwed it up, and for that you will pay.
Well, you know what they say. A product of a divorce is better than a product of an unhappy marriage or something.
Killed it
Well
for our
said.
last
Yeah.
line of the show.
Very well done.
Everyone knows that line.
It's Alex!